Okay, so me and my husband just rewatched Prince of Egypt, and it was honestly amazing to rewatch it again after so many years of watching it as a little kid. And I could appreciate the film so much more now because as a color key artist working in animation, I constantly study color and lighting in films. And rewatching Prince of Egypt just made me appreciate the efforts that were put into this film so much more, with the art direction and the hand painted backgrounds, the visual effects, the special effects, and everything that went into creating this film. So I thought, why not do a video about it, talking about how great and intentional the use of color is in Prince of Egypt to really cinematically tell the story and also create the proper moods that we ought to feel throughout the film, because I really do love the use of color in this film. And as you watch the film, there's a really distinct color arc that is so intentional and so thought out that I thought it was just so worth talking about and sharing with you so that you guys can watch the film and study as well. So I thought it'd be really fun to do a two-part series. In this first video, I want to show the film as an overview on ShotDeck, which is one of my favorite resources to go and gather film stills of all different movies that you can possibly think of. And I wanted to kind of go over the whole color arc of the film because you can see the film stills kind of holistically on ShotDeck. And in part 2 of this video, which will be a separate video, I wanted to bring in actual film stills into Photoshop and talk about how brilliantly the backgrounds were painted in terms of composition, color, scale, value structure, and all that juicy stuff. So if you're a fan of Prince of Egypt or just want to learn about how great the use of color is in this film, definitely watch this video. I wanted to show you guys ShotDeck and how you can really get the arc of color by looking at all the film stills in chronological order. Now, I love ShotDeck because I honestly use it all the time for research, for work. You can browse through different titles. They have hundreds of movies, music videos, TV shows. So you can see movies here and you can browse through alphabetical order. And you can just browse shots and kind of get random shots and kind of go down a rabbit hole, really just clicking through and kind of exploring lighting and also just finding similar shots that way. So it's a really helpful way to gather a lot of color and lighting reference. And what I also love about ShotDeck is that they added this new thing where they have color swatches, so you can really see the breakdown of color with each film still that you enlarge. And of course, it also says the movie and additional info right here. And also on the side here, you can also filter through time period, release year, media type. You can also filter through color if you want just red, kind of give you red themed, film stills. Some are more broader than others. So sometimes you do have to filter in a little bit, although I like to keep it a little bit more generic. That's a really fun one. Aspect ratio, interior, exterior. So let's say you want red interior. I'll start giving you some of these things, right? Versus exterior. Lens size, composition, lighting. Do you want soft light, hard light, high contrast, low contrast? So you can, take out interior and now you get red, high contrast pieces and things like that. And so you can really, again, go down a rabbit hole just exploring all these filters and just kind of clicking on something and then seeing what similar shots there are, clicking on that shot and seeing what similar shots there are from that. And sometimes you can really find some really cool references kind of based on going from one film still to another, not even the same movie, just kind of going through different shots of all these random movies of different compositions depending on what you're looking for. So with that being said, I'm going to go back and search for Prince of Egypt because that's what I want to talk about today. So I'll go to the P's and I'll go to Prince of Egypt. Now, what's really cool is that right now I have it set to grid style, so I can see the overview of color really easily because I have these in chronological order by shot time. So this is in chronological order, and I'm just gonna scroll through actually on the side so my cursor doesn't click on anything, and just kind of let you soak in all the different colors that are happening. Now, it might seem maybe random at first. It's definitely not random, especially if you rewatch the film. I'm going to talk about some details a little bit more. But I just think it's so cool to be able to holistically see the entire film this way and be able to scroll through. Now, I will say I want to make 2 parts to this video. In part 2, I actually want to analyze some of the film stills and backgrounds and bring them into Photoshop and talk about how they're just beautifully using edges, value, and color to tell the story at that particular moment. In this video, I want to go over the overall color arc that's being used in this film and what I thought was so remarkable and so beautiful. So I'm just scrolling through right now just for you to get an idea of the whole film. Now, if I click here, they're going to be a little bit bigger, the shots, which we can actually stay here for now. And then if you click this, that's like each individual still at a time, which could be really cool as well, almost like a pitch deck kind of thing. So there's different ways to view the film stills. Now I'm going to go back to this. I'm not sure what this, oh, that's cool. Just makes it bigger. I didn't know what that did. Now you can scroll through. So in the beginning, right, we have the hot scenes of the slaves working in Egypt, right? And you can see that there's this really distinct yellow palette to represent the heat, the tired fatigueness that the slaves have to go through each and every day to build the kingdom of Egypt. And so there's a really distinct color palette here, which is these earthy kind of yellows, reds, kind of desaturated reds and yellows. But the use of yellow is really intentional. It's like this kind of cool yellow in the sky. And the sky is yellow. I mean, we don't often see a yellow sky, but I think it's really symbolic here because that really gives a sense of oppression, of heat, of just, not being able to, I guess, get anywhere in a sense. And of course, the song Deliver Us is very powerful here. And so you start to scroll through, and now we enter into this scene where the mother is trying to save baby Moses, right? And so now we get these really nice neutral color palettes. I especially love looking at backgrounds like this and how, there's so many distinct shapes and simplified color choices that represent the mood of the whole scene, which is, the Egyptian soldiers are trying to kill all the newborns. She's trying to frantically save Moses and, put him in a basket so that he can hopefully get away safely. And so we kind of get into these more greens and reds, kind of these complementary color schemes. And then when the Egyptian, when Pharaoh, I guess his name is Pharaoh, I'm forgetting the name's wife, picks up baby Moses, we get into these pastel colors, right? And so I feel like with her world is really surrounded by these purples and yellows and kind of really soft pastel colors to kind of create that feeling of safety. And as we keep scrolling down, we can see that as Ramesses and Moses grows up, they're, up to a little bit of mischief. And I just love these shots right here, which I'll be talking about, in part 2 of the video about the scale and the composition and all that. But what's really interesting is that if you notice the color palette of, the palace in these scenes versus later on, they're very different. And I'm going to see if I can bring those up and compare. But As we can see here, I love the use of the night scenes, right? And I love how the rim lighting on the characters it's very subtle. It's not overdone. It's gentle and just it's believable. And what I love about Prince of Egypt is the naturalistic lighting that it has, in my opinion. I think that's what makes it feel so much more real. Like, yes, the blues are pushed, but it's pushed to a point of believability. And there's not a lot of extra light sources for the sake of being cinematic. Like, when they want to be dark, they can be dark, right? Like, he's just a silhouette there, which is what I love. Like, there's shots where it's like, yeah, she's in shadow and she's in dark. She's a silhouette. And that's with, say with a little bit of rim light. And that's what's so beautiful. And here, for example, he's going into shadow. And I just love how the left part of his body blends into the shadow, almost just melts in there, right? He's starting to doubt his identity. Is he really a Prince of Egypt? Or is he something else? And so as he discovers the truth about what Pharaoh did, killing the newborns, he starts to doubt his identity and doubt if he really belongs where he thought he did. Now we go back to those pastel colors with Pharaoh's wife, which I'm blanking out on her name. Should have done research before this. And, it kind of, I love this piece here. It just kind of feels safe. It feels beautiful. But he's soon going to run away from all that, right? Which you can see here. He's running away into the hot, hot desert. Now, the desert palette is quite different from the beginning of the film, even though they're both hot environments, oppressive heat. We've kind of transitioned into these reds now, these like really hot reds to really just emphasize the isolation, lack of water. Look at that, just the composition and everything. You just feel that heat simply through the composition and the color, which I think is so cool. And I know that a lot of the background supervisor, Paul Lassane, and Ron Lucas were going out to Death Valley and doing sketches and plein air paintings in that area to really capture the mood and feel of the desert landscape. And now here, Moses travels to Midian. This part, right, as he finds his new family, we kind of enter into a more neutral color palette. There's a shot that I love, such as this shot right here. There's still some reds, there's still some purples. It's kind of like an analogous color palette, but it feels very peaceful compared to when he meets the burning bush. Right now we have some distinct color palette coming in here, these purples as he's talking to God and hearing God's voice, telling him to go save his people. And so we have a really beautiful, distinct color palette there. Now, as we enter into the confrontation between Ramesses and Moses, what I love is these shots right here. The tealness of the palace is something that is not seen before. So if you look at this and you scroll up to any of the other palace scenes, much more neutral, I would say, not as pushed. And here the teal just makes it scrolled a little bit too far down. The teal just makes it a little bit more somber. Like the relationship between them is not the same anymore. It feels a little bit heavier, right? And like I said before, it's so cool because if you click on each film, so you can see the color swatches that are being used. And so if I click on this and I take a screenshot, I remember it, right? Let's just take a moment to look at that. And then if I, scroll up and I click on something like this, you can see this is much more grays. There's so much more neutrals being used here. And granted, yes, a lot of it is the outside scenario, but still, I think there's a big difference, compared to these warms as well. This is a big difference from those teal color palettes that we just saw. Even this is quite different, a lot more colorful. We have reds representing the festivity, really beautiful, cooler ambient light on the pillars, warm yellow light. None of these colors are really existent right here, right? It's just very much these muted teals. And as we keep going forward, I'm gonna kind of scroll through like this. Now, the plagues are gonna come onto Egypt, right? Because Ramesses is not agreeing to let the people of Moses go. So you can see the color palette is slowly intensifying, right? And what's really interesting is especially here, right? Really, really use of these saturated reds that haven't been used before, and very much theatrical as well. It's very pushed. But what I love about Prince of Egypt is that the colors are pushed with intention. They're not just randomly pushed in different places because it's like, oh, I don't know, it's cool to use a saturated red. Feels pretty. Let's just use it here. Or it's cool to use a saturated blue. Let's just use it there. This film is actually composed of a lot of neutrals that builds up to the confrontation between Ramesses and Moses, and the use of red gets more and more intense, representing bloodshed. And so you can see here that's being used as well, right? And as we get further and further along, and fire starts falling upon Egypt, right? Some of these film stills, like this one, that is not realistic per se at all, but man, does it get the mood across, right? These locusts are coming, frogs are coming, all these plagues are coming, fire is raining down, and it's just complete turmoil. And so look at the color palette here. You don't see this color palette anywhere else in the film. These reds of various saturations, a deep alizarin crimson, cadmium red, orange red, right? It's almost monochromatic, but it serves a purpose. It serves a purpose to really show the anger that Ramesses has, how the plagues are going to get worse. It just conveys the mood of that particular scene so well. I also love the lighting on Ramesses' face here. You don't get any high contrast as much until these kinds of scenes, where again, his face is in shadow and you can see the anger and the resistance simply in his eyes, and the lighting is highlighting his eyes, right? That's all you need. You can't really see his mouth, but you can feel the anger and the emotions all in his eyes. I love diagonal raking lighting like that as well, and I love high contrast studies or film stills where you really, I love it when things are just kind of pushed into darkness. I really love it when animated films, or just when any film does that. And I don't think a lot of animated films do that nowadays, personally. I think we like to have to reveal everything, like everything has to be shown, everything has to be lit, rim lit from both sides. And what I love about Prince of Egypt is that they are not afraid to push things into darkness like this. I mean, there's black, and then that is almost the value of that blue is almost black, but there's just like a cool temperature to it. The shadow on his face is basically black, right? Because it blends into the background of shot deck. So I love it when films do that. I think it's so bold. I think it's so daring. And look at these shots when fire is raining down. Yes, fire is associated with orange and red, but I love how they decided to make everything orange and red, just have that really intense bounce light on the buildings. I think that's so cool. And looking at the color palette here as well, right? Color warm, saturated orange. It's nighttime, but it's like they chucked that out the door. It's like, let's push the cinema of this for this particular scene as much as possible. I love this shot as well, right? That again, the reds that are being used. You feel the fear in the Egyptian people. I love the purple shadows. The thing about layout and story is that you can tell so much in one shot through simply shadows, right? So you can't see what they're looking at, but you can see through the shadows on the wall that's not something nice. and also the expression on their films. And so just the quality of light, the hard light with the hard shadows, really creates this intense feeling of fear. My vocabulary isn't great right now for some reason. I keep saying fear, but hopefully you get what I mean. And, things like this, right? Almost graphic, just basically graphic when their faces kind of meld to each other. And I thought that was so cool. And so as you just scroll through, nowhere else do you see these intense reds until now. So what I mean to say is that this film has a very intentional buildup of color, right? The use of color is intentionally used. And I think that is so important in storytelling in a film. You are storytelling with color. And I think Prince of Egypt does that so well. And then as we get to the ultimate of the plagues, I guess, where God kills all the firstborns, you get into this area of complete grays because Ramesses has just lost his son. And shots like these, they just give me chills because again, we are not afraid to go to darkness. Look at how it's almost vignetted, right? And just look at the color palette here now. It's basically grays. Look at that. Grays is my best friend. I love grays. I love grays. And looks just blacks. And obviously there is a tint, there is a tone to these grays, like kind of, I don't know, I would say like a greenish yellowish gray. But oh God, this background gives me chills. And what I love is this shot as well. I just have to talk about this shot really quick because this is this kind of shot that tells a story in 1,000 words in one shot. Like you look at that and you don't need multiple shots to explain what is happening. You can feel the weight of his decision just pouring down on him. He's lost his son. He's basically just given up. And he's in the shadow of his dad's statue. It's silhouetted, the lighting, it just reveals just enough to give us a location, but there's so much that's left in shadow and just enough brought into light. And so shots like this, I think, are so beautiful because they tell so much with so little, so simple. And here, right? Actually, I got ahead of myself. Now is a time where God sends the angel of death to kill all the firstborns. And now you can really see how stripped down that palette is. So it's really muted. It's really gray. Look at those grays. Look at that. That's all neutral grays. Yes, maybe warmer grays, cooler grays, some reddish grays, but it's very almost monochromatic. And again, I think that is such a bold decision. So something like this, just love the blacks. I love the blacks. I can't get over that. But just look at the color swatches here. Nowhere else in this film will you see the color swatch like this. This is the only time in the film where it goes this desaturated. And it's for a good reason. It's because Ramesses has just lost his son. He's so miserable. He's in the depths of despair. So it makes sense to strip out all the color, right? I also just love the hierarchy of lighting. I'll probably be talking about this one in part 2 of the video. But as you scroll through, you can see that nowhere else, you can see that this is so apparently just stripped of color. And as Moses now can bring his people out of Egypt and save his people because Ramesses has given him the go, now we have color brought back, right? As they travel through, you can see the palette gets a little bit more naturalistic until we get to the Red Sea and we have the famous parting of the Red Sea, which I love. I just love the special effects. I think it was just done so well for a 2D film, the marriage of 2D and 3D. And so you can see here the grandness of the parting of the sea. And we are kind of bringing back those greenish teals again, a little bit of reds from the fire. This is Ramesses' last try to track Moses and attack him, but unfortunately, he loses and he's left on the rocks, as you can see right here. And again, we have quite a neutral palette. For every still that you think, wow, that's a lot of color, there's also a lot of neutrals to balance everything. So for example, even in the sky right here, lots of neutrals in the sky to balance out those pops of red from the fire. And I think the reason why I love this film so much is that it has such a plein air-esque sense to it. You can tell that the painters painted from life, did a lot of studies from life, which they did. And it's very apparent in the backgrounds of this film. So again, just scrolling through, you can just see the intentional use of color and how everything supports the story, the particular mood, the interaction between the characters and those particular scenes. The colors should support that, not the other way around, right? We're storytelling with color. And, it'd be really cool if I took a lot of these film stills and just did like a quick color strip to kind of break down the abstractness and the progression of color. But if you can see through one by one here, I don't know if scrolling through would help see as well. It's just the yellows, the heat, the cool yellows as well, before we get to the warmer red yellows in the desert as Moses escapes from Egypt. So hopefully, as you can see these bigger, you can kind of feel the progression. I'm not going to scroll through the whole film, but I just kind of wanted you to soak in it a little bit bigger, since we saw them as small thumbnails, right? Maybe I will end up scrolling through the whole thing. I don't know, because I'm just enjoying it on my screen as well. The worms here really reflect their camaraderie as brothers in the beginning, right? It's a feeling of warmth, feeling of love, which is very different. I feel like the teals are starting to be introduced here to maybe hint and foreshadow at the eventual separation between these two brothers, but who knows, right? There's teals here as well. And look at how different this purple night is, by the way, compared to this night right here, right? As he enters out of Egypt and into town, the color palette of the night actually changes. I did not notice that before until now scrolling bigger. But to do so in such a way where you don't notice it while you're watching it, I think is a real skill. So as we're scrolling here, very intentional use of light. Whether there's one key light source or two, maybe a key light and a fill light. Nothing's really pushed too much, or it's pushed in a way that's, I think, believable. Here Moses is like, no, this is my home. I am the prince of Egypt. But then he falls asleep and he starts to dream a dream of what Pharaoh did, and he realizes that it is indeed true through the hieroglyphics on the wall that he did kill all the firstborns and the newborns. And here, this beautiful kind of vignette lighting between Pharaoh and Moses, where he starts to doubt his identity. Back to the pastels, right, that we talked about earlier. And as he escapes, right, this is when he accidentally kills a man and he runs away. And as he escapes, those beautiful neutrals are still here. Look at that sky, by the way. Look at that hot yellow sky. And then we transition into the reds, and look at how red they get. But I reckon to say that these reds are not as saturated as the later reds we see when the plagues come and attack Egypt. So these are more of a neutral, earthy reds. They're varied as well. It's not one kind of red. When I say red, I never mean one kind of red. There's so many different kinds of reds, like cooler reds, warmer reds. Right here, definitely desaturated, balanced with these almost dark shadows in the crevices of the sand dune. And then we go back to these more yellow neutrals, right? Here, I just love the deepness of that sky. Now, I don't know how they pulled off such a saturated sky, because that is very saturated, but it's because the value is correct. So if you look at all these night times, it feels dreamy. And I love the use of that color because it's not like a super cool blue. It's actually like a warmer, purplish, deep blue. It feels very inviting, and it fits the song that's going on in the scene. Look at your life through heaven's eyes. I think it's called Through Heaven's Eyes, one of my favorite songs. And look at how purple the shadows are. It's very different when Moses first meets Miriam. That night is also a very different kind of night. The blues are different than this. So throughout one film, you have different kinds of colored nights, which is really cool. The use of color here is also much more inviting and warm than the previous ones, where Ramesses and Moses are being introduced, I think, as the new princes or something. Like it's not as saturated as here. And so here it feels much more homely, I would think. Here's why I love those neutrals and the sheeps. Of course, keeping the local color of the rocks as well. Oh, I love these shots too. I love those purple shadows. Again, we have those rich purple blue skies, nighttime. As they get married. I don't know how to pronounce her name, so I'm not going to say it. Look at that. Look at this. That is so different from the previous shots of nighttime. This is definitely much more warmer, definitely a lot more purples infused for sure. And this is all intentional. I've had my students do film studies of this one because the value structure is, I'll talk about this in the next video, but it's very, very limited actually, and it's very grouped, and I think that's what's so brilliant about it. So this is one of the shots I'll be talking about in part 2 of the video. Then we get to the burning bush. We have a few more blues introduced now. Feels mysterious, feels a little foreign, right? Until it starts talking, God starts talking, and then these worms start emanating. But it's almost like this bright white light, but not quite white. There's a touch of warmth to it. It's like very, very light pinkish yellow. And scroll through, then it gets back to these purples. And again, I feel like this color palette is very specific to only this particular scene where Moses is talking to the burning bush. So I'm going to keep scrolling just a little faster. Him and his wife go back to Egypt, demand that Ramesses let his people go. And now we get into those teal, damp color palettes. Not a lot of hard light anywhere. It feels very, not musty, but very unsettling. That's the word, I think. And that's really through the lighting and the color. Love that harsh backlight on these two characters. And as we scroll through, right, you start to get these intense warms, back to some neutrals right here. This is almost a similar shot to the beginning, one of the beginning shots, but a little bit more dark, a little bit, definitely a little bit more damp. And so as we scroll through and all the kind of plagues start happening, now we're going to start to see the intensification of the color of red. It's very symbolic of bloodshed, foreshadowing what's going to happen. That yellow sky we have again, kind of hearkening back to the heat in Egypt. Look at that lighting right there. Very theatrical, but it's because we want our eye to be drawn there. And so there's a hierarchy in the light. Now the plagues start happening. Now I love the color palette in these because this doesn't feel inviting. Like there's sort of a weird stiflingness with the yellows being used, that it feels like things are dying. It's not like a very fresh yellow that harkens to spring and growth. It's quite stifling, I would say. And so I love the use of colors in this one. What happens when I click there? Oh, add to deck. Okay. And so you can see here, there's really no saturation at all, like not a lot of bounce light, that we love in animation, the pretty bounce light. There's really none of that. It feels like death is coming. That's what it feels like. And I just find it amazing that colors can make you feel that way. Along with, of course, the story. Love this complementary color scheme. Fire raining down. Look at how hot and red that is. Now we want to emphasize the bounce light. So look at the bounce light on the buildings, on the orange from the fire. Now you really, really feel the heat. But what I will also say is that I just love the light dark silhouettes that are happening in this film still. There's clear readability going on, even though there's so much going on. I'll talk about that a little bit more in the next video. So as we get to here, now we start to get those intense reds, higher contrast, darker shadows. And as we keep going, we get darker and darker shadows, more and more intense red until we get black shadows. And then, almost black, dark somberness. That's pretty much black right there, I would say, and black right here. And now we're starting to strip the color away, right? As we foreshadow the worst of the plagues. Really cool shot right there. And even here, notice how gray this is. Compared to all the other night scenes that we've seen now, this is definitely muted. So again, so many ways to render a night scene based on the scene and based on the mood that you want to convey. So we come from here, we go to here. Look at how stripped down the color is. Very, very subtle, very, very subtle neutral grays, purplish grays, tealish grays. It's not straight up gray. There is still some color, some tints, but it's very neutral for sure. And so I love the effects of the angel of death as well. I think that's really cool. And now we're stripping away. Look at that, stripping away the color until Ramesses has lost everything. And it's so apparent in the color as well. There's no color really at all. I should say there is color, but no saturated color. That's what I mean. So hopefully you can see the progression of color by looking at it as a big overview through here, and also looking at them bigger and just scrolling through and enjoying each film still one by one and analyzing, wow, why did they choose those colors? How does it serve the storytelling in this particular shot or in this particular scene? And again, Shot Deck is a really great resource. So you do have to pay for it. But I will say that if you work in the animation industry or you just really want to find awesome film references, it's definitely worth it. It's like $69 a year or something. So hopefully you enjoyed part 1 of this video, breaking down the color use in Prince of Egypt. And I will catch you in the part 2 of the second video, where I'm going to bring in specific film stills that I saved on Shot Deck, and I want to break down the use of color, edges, lighting, value even more in particular shots. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.